Okay. So there's a common question that people come to me and go, well, should I buy my principal place residence now? I finally, the journey of the buyer, they start out becoming they start working, whatever that is, and then they start saving money, right? And then we've obviously coached people on how to save money and then using that money to then go into a property. Once you've accumulated that money, the common question is, well, do I buy a house to live in or do I buy an investment property? And so for different people, they may not be able to afford the location they want to live in. So that's a pretty clear indication of, well, you've got this money. If you don't buy, say you've got 100 grand, that's enough money to invest into a property. That might not be enough as a deposit if you're living in a location that requires $200,000 as an initial deposit from the bank's perspective. And in order for you to save up that additional $100,000, it might take you 4 years. 25 grand a year savings, that's pretty standard. So, not for everyone. Everyone's different. Some people might be like, oh, well, that's nothing. And some people might be like, damn, I can't.
That's good, yeah.
Apparently, this is some stats thrown out there where they say 80% of statistics are wrong, but there's like a large percentage of people live on, say, like savings of $100 a week.
Oh man, it's a large percentage of people that live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Like if you speak to our mate, some of our mates on the site, job sites, it's like literally like, yes, how good's Thursday? I'm going to get paid. Like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not.
If that's you, then yeah, maybe it's worth starting to rent-vest, save, and then rent-vest. Or go back and listen to our pod on how to save your first deposit because there's some seriously good nuggets in there.
Yeah, well, yeah. So coming around to which is best is, if you sit out of the market and wait for 4 years, that to save that extra $100,000, depending on the market and where it's at, right? But more often than not, you're going to be, if you've got a budget of, to get into that location is $1 million as a round number. In 4 years' time, that might be worth $1.2 million. So then your deposit size is going to be larger. So you're constantly chasing that mythical dragon in that way. And people do get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they don't make that decision. 10 years down the track, you still haven't made that decision to buy a property. So the point being is, well, if you've got that initial cash, what do you do with it? And if you want to go down the principal place of residence pathway, then I'd be looking into the data to see what the growth prospects are for that location as a starting point, and then looking at the opportunity costs of where else you could buy. But just in general, the cash flow requirements for your principal place of residence are high, and you're getting no income out of it. So once you go down your principal place of residence pathway, you sign up, you've got that 30-year loan term. You've got to make those repayments, but you've got no additional cash flow coming through, so it hinders your borrowing capacity for a number of years. So you won't be able to invest in property for a number of years. Whereas if you go down the rent vesting path, because you've got that income paying for that debt, you can accumulate more properties, which is getting you to that target of a passive income, because you retire on income. You don't
retire on your home.
No, because obviously if you're doing the rent vesting, you're renting, and that's costing you money as well. But these are the stats that I put around it, which is on a broad base, if you've got $1 million house, say you want to buy $1 million house, you've got $200K as a deposit, you need $800,000. In today's rates, $800,000 in a principal and interest loan is costing you $1,135 a week to hold.
Okay, so just say 1,100.
Yeah, 1,100 round figures. On an interest only, it's costing you round figures $1,000.
Okay,
so you're paying about extra $100 down on your principal at the start, which is whatever. It's still 1,000 to 1,100 in repayments to have your principal place residence. For that $1 million asset, you're probably looking at, like, in different locations, obviously, but you're probably looking at renting that for around $800 a week.
Yeah.
8 to 900.
Yeah.
So that's that additional cash flow that you can actually, and more often than not, sorry.
And I want to add to that because there's more expenses that you need to have. It's not just your repayments, right? It's your rates. So for about $1 million property, we were looking at one the other day, the rates, being like $3 to $4 grand a quarter.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just like, in a location that's close to us, and then you've got insurance, property insurance as well.
You'll have property insurance from an investment as well.
Yeah, and then you also got maintenance of the property as well, which as a rent investor you're not paying for. So I just want to add in those sort of expenses as well, like. Yeah,
you got additional expenses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. Landlord insurance, you don't need that, but you still have insurance over the property you own.
But would it be safe to say that you could put from that $1,100 P&I repayments, you could add another $200 a week onto that for rates and for insurance? Yeah, and then also and then maintenance too, right?
Yeah.
Which it might actually end up being more. It might end up being more than $1,300 in repayments. But just say, $200 a week is, probably not that much. Like if your rates are around $3 to $4 grand a quarter, like it's,
and on the go,
getting up there.
I'd be budgeting like $1,000 for rates, but
a quarter, so $4 grand a year.
Yeah.
And then you've got property insurance, so let's just say it's $5 grand a year, right? So yeah, $200. Roughly, yeah. So
$5 grand's a lot, unless you're in Townsville.
So let's just say your repayments are $1,300 now per week versus $800.
Yes,
there's a big difference, right?
Yep,
that's a $500 per week difference.
Yeah,
which is at a savings rate, Is that 25 grand a year? I think it is, right?
And then well, and that's the calculation you got to do in your head, and the more desirable locations in around Australia, the cheaper it is to rent to own. So as an example, I'm buying properties in Sydney at the moment. You're looking at $3 million. They're renting for around $1,500 a week. So if you want to amplify that out, like I'm doing $1 million as an example. If you're buying a $3 million property, you're looking at, say,
3 times that,
$3,000 a week just to hold it, and then you're renting it for $1,500 a week. It's like, your opportunity cost is massive. And that's when, that's why everyone is different, depends on the location, but having those initial chats on the way in can really change your life, because 70% of people that buy their first home, that's not their forever home. So that's a really key point to hit home on, is that the house that you buy today as your principal place resident is not going to be your forever home. You grow, you change, you might even change locations, So thinking and asking those questions up front is the strategy side of things, where you're like, well, where do you plan to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If you're constantly changing, then maybe buying and pushing your financial capacity to limits for that principal place of residence for the perceived value of, well, I have security. It's just that question you've got to ask yourself.
Even like a good example is my brother, right? He bought a really good house, really good home, redeveloped it, built his dream home, right? They're both like, absolutely love it. Like, it's our dream home. At the same time, they're like, well, we might move locations, right? But they've got their dream home. Like, they can go and build that somewhere else. So they're changing locations, which changes things as well. And that's in under a 10-year period too. So,
most people do.
Even if you do get to that place where, like, my brother has his dream home in an awesome location, like, things change.
Yeah, and also there's some joys in you can go and try new locations as a renter. You can just pack up, you pay a few $1,000 in moving fees, go live somewhere else. You could have a different lifestyle. You could choose to go inland and have that tree sort of experience, or you could.
Love it.
What's so funny about that one?
Well, live in a tree house, like.
Oh no, I'm talking about
That's where my mind went. That's why I laughed.
Oh, tree house.
You mean like as in like enjoy a property with trees?
No, you look out. It's peaceful, man.
Yeah, it is.
Like you
It's
sit there and
nice.
look at the mountain ranges, and
Yeah.
you've got a bit of. You wake up, you don't smell, the city vibes,
Carbon.
car fumes, and all that. But then there's a beauty in waking up and just smelling the ocean.